Well, I'm just going to do this lesson 3. I mentioned before something about letter heights and setting it out and that kind of thing. So I was just going to kind of elaborate on that a little bit. I'll do it large so it's easier to see. Just put our right margin on. So don't need to start right at the top. Yeah, so we're going to do this extra large so you can see it. Well, so imagine we're going to do it double, but this is going to be our baseline. So that's just our writing line. And you've got your guideline. And you've got your descender area line, just down here. So that gives you 3 sections. So yeah, as I probably said before, so that you actually write on this line. Now, the simple way to do it is, you can write your lower cases here. If you're putting a little a, an a would be like that. Obviously, your b would come up here into the ascender area. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to make another small line. You might have seen me doing that. What am I doing? I'm just basically just bringing down that the ascender slightly. I've seen recently I think it's the French way of doing it, where it's actually divided into 5. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So your ascender, so your B would go to that line. It'd go to there. And if you had a capital, I say I was doing a capital A, you could bring it all the way to there. That's usually, if you're starting a paragraph, you could start it like that, but it doesn't really matter. You can do them, just generally you could do it. You could do a capital A to here. It doesn't really matter. This crossbar is in the sort of 50% midway, and then your third area, descender area, is it's obviously below the line. I'll do a G. So you have your minuscule section, and then your G comes down just below the line. Is your minuscule section of the I, the dot, the iota. I tend to put a little dash like that. I just find it looks kind of neater. It comes out well. And you've got your ascender of the H. The ascender comes to that line. It doesn't matter if you go all the way to there, but this is double height. It's more accentuated. Double height. This is quite tall. Once you start doing this, single height, it becomes less kind of important, really. So we'll just sort of replicate this. Let's replicate this over here. So we've got that's your sort of third section, So then, this very small difference is really nothing here. It's a mil, something to go over. So we would do, just copy in pencil as above. So the A would be in that area, B would be in that area. Capital A, again you can bring it all the way to the top if you want to, but you don't really want to be writing all the way to the top. This is more like if you're, if you're starting something that's more like poems or something, or more calligraphy style, you'd have a big, fill the line on the first one, on the, I was thinking again, I had the word initial, it's the initial letter, at the beginning, initial meaning beginning. We sometimes think, oh, it's your initials. That just means, the two letters that represent your name. But yeah, obviously it comes from the word to be the initial start of something. So just copy this. The G comes down to here. That's the H. It's going up to that line. I is on the guideline. Little iota above it. Okay, sorry, I've been off camera for some of that. So yeah, I was saying, do you want to go to there? Do you want to go, bring it just slightly below? It's more about the initial, what I was saying about the initial letter. You could start something there if you wanted to. And then your riser would come to here, your ascender. Like that's if you want to accentuate the first letter. I mean, this brings up the question, it's depending what kind of writing you're doing, you want to kind of avoid this kind of thing, for example, crossing over letters like that. On you might consider leaving a line basically. So you could have G can do what it wants, and then you could have you can make the B as big as you want here, or just be a little bit creative about how you're setting things out. But anyway, this is the crux of it. It's the three sections, the ascender area, minuscule. I mean, yeah. Oh, sorry. The correct term for this is a majuscule. I think I'm saying that right. Majuscule. Descender area here. And you can experiment with this as well. Some people are struggling with getting their writing the right height. I'll give you a sort of example of badly spaced handwriting. So so if you had your guideline very low, for example, so you'd have you can. It's not. I mean, a lot of people write like this. They're very small. Or they make it even smaller. They make it like a 1 mil. Guideline. And it kind of gets a bit ridiculous. You can't really tell what's been written. So what you want to do, this is, you'll be aware of this height. So you can make that a lot taller. If you stick that at the 4 mil line. can straight away start to create something that looks a bit more legible. Yeah, see, that's a 1mm, that's a 4mm. And you know, if you had something, if you want to do something was, you know, if you're getting into kind of doing posters or something, you know, you can do just check that. So it's about I mean, just to remind you, yeah, the line is 8mm, so that's roughly 6. Yeah. You know, if you want to do something like this, you could do. So yeah, you're following the same rules. You know, you've got your riser area, your section 2, your few minuscules, and then descender area. It's just yeah, this is not obviously appropriate for everything, but you know, it's very clear. That can be read at a distance. That can be read at a distance, for example. That can be, you know, if you want to make a little, like a note or something, or a sign of some kind, you could make stuff a lot bigger, and it all lines up. You know, this is going to help you. You know, the idea with these guidelines is that they even if you're writing quickly, you know, a lot of people struggle. They've learnt to write very fast. You know, but you know, the idea is that you could start to just try and hit that guideline. Yeah, just taking that's obviously very scrappy, but it's sticking to the guideline. Just trying to get it even. You know, you'll find a lot of people write fast, and it starts to get all over the place. It starts to, you know, it starts right. You know. You know, what is wrong with my handwriting? It's like, well, you're not sticking to any guidelines. You're not sticking to anything. Things aren't formed. Nothing's formed properly. You know, I mean, this is sort of a bit over exaggerating, but to be fair, you know, you can sort of convince yourself that that's fine. You know, you think you're writing, but it's more a kind of you're kind of kidding yourself, really. So you know, if you take something like that and you start to analyze it and go, okay, well, that's not an N, for example. That's supposed to be an N of some kind. You know, that's not an A. There's an N missing there. But you know, you can kind of maybe understand it, you know, based on context. You know, oh yeah, that means what is wrong with handwriting. But you know, if you go back to that after 6 months and look at it, it's like, no, that's just a mess, you know. So you know, people who are struggling, you know, just try and do that guideline thing, and then it's just going to help you to pull everything back together.